This year, 38 AD, Caligula orders the construction of a puzzling monument to flaunt his wealth. Massive riots break out in Alexandria, and Paul the Apostle meets Peter the Apostle and James in Jerusalem. Welcome to the Yearly Histories, where we will highlight the major events that take place in the Common Era, year by year. Last year, we saw the elderly Emperor Tiberius passing away at the age of 77, and Caligula ascending to the throne, only to soon fall seriously ill and exhibit signs of a full nervous breakdown, becoming increasingly paranoid and irrational in his actions. This year in Rome, Emperor Caligula's paranoia intensifies, leading to a sharp rise in the persecution of his political opponents. One of the first major targets of his wrath is Naevius Sutorius Macro, the Praetorian prefect and his former staunch ally who played a key role in securing his rise to power. Caligula has started to see him as a threat and has him arrested, which leads to Macro committing suicide. Additionally, Caligula begins to show nothing but contempt towards the Senate. He seizes every opportunity he can to publicly humiliate them. The shift in attitude is possibly attributed to him poring over the transcripts of the treason trials held under Tiberius and Sejanus, and coming to the conclusion that the Senate should bear the lion's share of the blame for the political chaos. His harsh words do little to win the favor of the Roman aristocracy, further soured by his actions of bedding some of their wives and openly flaunting it. In his personal life, he loses a cherished family member. His favorite sister, Julia Drusilla, who he briefly named as his successor during his illness, passes away at the young age of 21. The illness which she succumbed to is unknown, but has been running rampant in Rome at this time. Caligula is devastated by this loss. He buries his sister with the honors of an Augusta and acts as a grieving widower. He has the Roman Senate declare her a goddess and proclaims a period of universal mourning on her behalf. In less than a year, Caligula's extravagant spending has managed to empty most of the treasury which Tiberius spent his entire reign frugally building up. By the summer of this year, he has convinced himself that his position as emperor requires him to display a grandiose image of wealth and grandeur to impress his subjects. Caligula orders his capable engineers to, quote, turn the sea into dry land, unquote, so he can ride across the water in triumph. To accomplish this puzzling request, they construct a bridge of boats across the Gulf of Baiae, topped by a road surface. Once this feat is accomplished, Caligula dons a cloak of gold cloth, studded with precious stones, and the breastplate of none other than Alexander the Great, while he rides back and forth across the bridge in a chariot, declaring that he has conquered Neptune. He then begins to dress as gods, goddesses, and other heroic figures, such as Neptune, Venus, and Hercules, further alienating himself from the Roman aristocracy. Another project of Caligula's vanity is completed this year, a duo of opulent ships intended for his personal use. The larger ship is an elaborate floating palace which contains quantities of marble, mosaic floors, heating and plumbing, and amenities such as baths. Elsewhere in the empire's second largest city, Alexandria, Caligula's well-known antipathy towards Judaism encourages a faction of anti-Semitic extremists in the city to launch a vicious attack on the Jewish community. Appian, a prominent Greek figure in Alexandria, had recently met with Emperor Caligula to complain about the Jewish community in the city. Appian's accusations were primarily focused on the Jews' refusal to participate in Roman religious practices and their distinct customs, which he claimed disrupted the social order of the city. Back in Alexandria, the city's predominantly Greek faction harbors growing resentment towards the Jewish community, fueled by their perceived collaboration with Roman authorities and the special privileges they are granted. The rioters seize the opportunity during the Jewish king Herod Agrippa's visit to the city to unleash their brutal pogrom. They mock Herod Agrippa's newly bestowed title as king, and then assault Jewish households, and forced the survivors into a cramped area of the city marred by pestilence and famine. Next, emboldened by the fact that the Roman emperor and governor of Egypt had both turned a blind eye to the violence, they begin to sack local synagogues and erect blasphemous statues of Caligula. All those Jews who protest are severely punished. Herod Agrippa immediately writes to his friend Caligula about the madness and complains about Governor Flaccus's behavior. Caligula takes heed of his word and has the governor banished and his estate confiscated. Ever since the last revolt against King Artabanus II's rule in Parthia in 35 AD, his position at the top has never been steady. This year, he is overthrown by a rival faction in favor of Cinemus, a man who has more support with the Parthian nobility and is declared king. Artabanus immediately flees to Adiabene, where its vassal king Isates II accepts him. Isates offers sanctuary to Artabanus, and recognizing the political instability in Parthia, begins to negotiate with the Parthian factions responsible for Artabanus's deposition, whom he still has influence among. The negotiations concern Artabanus returning to the throne to reduce tensions between rival factions in the court, and requires a full pardon for Artabanus's indiscretions, which ends in success. Cinemus steps down as king, and Artabanus is restored. No record exists of the fate of Cinemus. Returning to the story of Paul the Apostle, who has recently come back to the Levant after spending time in Nabatea, where he lived in solitude for the purpose of spiritual reflection, while others suggest he may have engaged in preaching and honing his rhetorical skills. He now arrives back in Jerusalem for the first time since converting to Christianity. The purpose of this return is to meet with Peter the Apostle, who has been the unquestioned leader of the Christians since the crucifixion, likely to gain practical guidance on the nuances of preaching the gospel of Jesus. Peter's recent activities have had an emphasis on missionary work towards the Jewish population of the region, traveling to Samaria and the coastal cities of Caesarea Maritima and Joppa. During his absence, the affairs of the Christian community in Jerusalem have been directed by the brother of Jesus, James, known as the Just, who converted after the crucifixion. Local sources say Paul also met with James on his brief return to the Holy City. At this point, Paul leaves Jerusalem on a journey back to his homeland of Cilicia to continue his preaching. 2 years ago, we saw Emperor Guangwu bolstering the fortifications along the northern border in order to prevent raids by the Xiongnu tribesmen. This year, he orders an extensive flurry of border bolsterings. This consists of the construction of a second line of defense across central Shanxi, a third to shield the Great Plain against attacks through Shanxi, and a fourth and fifth for the protection of northern Shenxi and the lower Wei River Valley. All walls are equipped with watchtowers and the usual apparatus for signaling. Nevertheless, this does not deter the Xiongnu from keeping up their raids, breaching or going around the fortifications, and roaming through large parts of the northwest at will. Since 33 AD, Chinese farmers who reside in the consistently plundered lands have been fleeing, which forced the emperor to issue edicts to aid in their migration. It appears as if this program will have to continue into the future. Now it's time for In Memoriam, where we look back on the lives of prominent figures who died in the year. Du Shi was a Chinese engineer, inventor, and government official of the Han Dynasty. He is credited as the first to apply hydraulic power by using water wheel-driven bellows to improve metallurgy, revolutionizing iron production. Serving as an administrator, he implemented various infrastructure projects that enhanced local economies. We will leave this year, 38 AD, with Caligula picking a fight with the Senate, massive anti-Jewish riots ravaging Alexandria, and Emperor Guangwu bolstering the fortifications of the Han northern border. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to be notified when the next iteration of the yearly histories will be released. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next year in 39 AD to continue the fascinating stories of the world of antiquity and cover its major events.